Welcome to CSGuitars, the science of loud. Today we're going to be looking at drive pedals again, specifically in regards to their tone controls. Luke on the CSGuitars Discord asked what a tone knob on a drive pedal is actually doing, whether it's cutting highs, or boosting bass, or something else entirely. I think this is an excellent question and we should investigate it here because, as we'll soon discover, there are many ways in which we can implement a tone circuit, and just because two different pedals have a knob labelled tone, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be doing the same thing. I've collected together 4 iconic dirt boxes which represent 4 very different approaches to the tone control, and we're going to take a look at how these are different both in terms of the circuit and in terms of the signal when we put these through the scope. By far the simplest of the 4 is the ProCo RAT. This is the part of the circuit relating to the tone control, and as you can see it comprises of only 3 components. The potentiometer, upon which sits the knob we adjust, a resistor, and a capacitor connected to ground. This forms a simple low-pass filter, an RC circuit which allows low frequencies to travel from input to output unimpeded, but any frequencies higher than a certain threshold will be bled to ground through the capacitor. The frequency at which the filter begins to bleed signal is determined by the component values, which is defined by this relation. This is exactly the same type of tone circuit we find inside our guitars. Turning the knob changes the resistance value of the potentiometer, which in turn alters the frequency at which the filter starts bleeding high frequencies to ground. We can see this clearly in action on the scope traces. Performing Bode plots for different positions of the tone control, we can see the attenuation beginning at lower and lower frequencies as the knob is turned clockwise. This really is as simple as a tone control can be. Basic passive attenuation of everything above the frequency defined by the position of the knob. The little Big Muff is next under examination, although I could equally have used the Boss DS1 as they both feature a very similar tone circuit. Like the RAT, the Muff features a passive filter-based tone circuit, although we can see that there are now 2 filters, one on either side of the potentiometer. If we ignore the top half for now and just focus on the bottom half of the circuit, we can see a very similar low-pass filter arrangement to what we saw in the RAT. So turning down the Muff tone control will result in bleeding treble out of the signal. The top filter is the opposite arrangement, changing the positions of the resistor and capacitor, making this a high-pass filter. The high frequencies can now reach the output unimpeded, but the low frequencies, below a threshold dictated by the component values, get bled to ground. So this Muff tone control works in halves. Right in the middle, where the 2 filters meet, we get a little mid-scoop. Turning anti-clockwise from centre, we attenuate treble, and turning clockwise from centre, we attenuate bass. This is a very simple but effective way of getting wider functionality from a single control. Both the RAT and the Muff represent passive tone circuits, circuits built from simple, non-powered components that are only capable of reducing or attenuating the signal level. They cannot boost any frequencies and are relying on the preceding circuit to provide an overly bright signal that they can then bring down to a more usable level. If we want to start boosting, that is amplifying certain frequencies, they're made to look at pedals with active tone circuits. Okay, Colin, it's a new year, it's 2022, it's finally time to learn that damn program. Right, Now what do I do? Learning new things can be incredibly daunting, especially if it's a skill that has a lot of time investment. I've decided that this is the year I finally bite the bullet and learn how to use Adobe After Effects, not only to improve the visual effects of these videos and speed up my workflow, but it also has huge potential for my future employment opportunities. But there's a massive learning curve to something like this, and that's why I'm once again seeking out Skillshare to help speed up that process. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for anyone who loves learning and wants to explore their creativity and learn new skills. I'm starting with Jake Bartlett's After Effects classes, which are teaching me all about 3D camera arrangements and 3D tracking of footage, which you'll hopefully see the fruits of in future videos. Last year, Skillshare helped me learn other Adobe Suite programs like Illustrator, taught me new art techniques, as well as ways of establishing a stronger personal brand. If you are thinking about joining Skillshare for yourself, then the link in the description will give the first 1,000 people a 1-month free trial. It's ad-free, and there are new premium classes being added every week, so there's always something new to discover with Skillshare. The Klone Centaur is one of those pedals that people talk about as being full of myth, magic, and mojo. But there's nothing secret about the circuit anymore. It's very well understood from a scientific perspective, and I have one of the RYRA recreations here which will serve as an accurate analogue. This circuit instantly looks far more complicated than the previous two pedals, but there's really not much going on here. We have a TL072 op-amp, which is amplifying the signal, an RC filter here, which is setting the frequency above which the amplification will take place, and a series of resistors, of which the potentiometer is one that will dictate the gain of the amplifier. So unlike the previous two pedals, where the tone knob was controlling the frequency at which attenuation began, here the frequency always remains the same, and the tone knob controls the level of boosting being applied. From our filter frequency equation, we can calculate that the amplification will be applied to everything above around 400 Hz, and we can calculate the minimum and maximum gain using the resistor values. Anti-clockwise will give us a reduction of up to -8 decibels, while clockwise will give us a massive 18 decibel boost. The scope shows just how much additional amplitude the treble boost provides. This is all achievable due to the power circuit of the Klone upscaling the voltage to a colossal 27 volts of headroom. So it's not magic, it's just headroom and treble boosting. Finally, we come to our good friend, the Ibanez Tube Screamer. This comprises of a passive, low-pass filter followed by an active tone circuit, with the tone knob controlling a second RC filter in the amplifier feedback loop. The first low-pass filter will act to bleed out frequencies above 720 Hz, and the following active circuit will try to amplify to compensate for that loss. The position of the tone knob effectively changes what part of the circuit the second RC filter is affecting. Turning anti-clockwise, it reinforces the first low-pass filter, dropping the attenuation frequency even lower and darkening the sound. In the clockwise direction, it's behaving much more like the presence control of an amplifier. It's bleeding high frequencies out of the feedback loop of the amplifier, which has the effect of more treble being amplified through the circuit. We can see that increasing the tone control brings in more high frequency content, levelling out the frequency response somewhat from its low mid peak. this has been a demonstration of just how different tone controls can be even amongst drive pedals. Now this is by no means an exhaustive list, there are many other ways in which one could implement a tone circuit, but it's worth remembering that a tone control on one device may not be doing the same thing as a tone control on another, and gaining some appreciation for how each of these is implemented will give us a better understanding of how our pedals work so we can use them more effectively to get our ideal guitar sound. Now if you've liked this video and you learned something, then don't forget to click all the buttons you're supposed to make this video viable to the ever-changing whims of the YouTube algorithm. That's all for now, keep it loud, and stay safe. Ugh, f*** me, it's warm in here.